My name is Dom Douglas, and I've been playing Magic the Gathering for what seems like forever, but in fact it's only been on and off for about 30 years. With that comes an expectation that I'm the best player ever. You couldn't be any more wrong in that statement. What I do like, however, is having a lot of fun. Whether it be playing Limited, Draft, Commander, Standard when I get the chance, Arena, Magic the Gathering Online, it doesn't matter as long as a good time is had. And with that, I have some opinions, not just of Magic the Gathering, but also video games, comics, maybe even a TV show or two. This is the Goblin Grenade Podcast. Want to welcome you all to the Goblin Grenade Podcast. As the intro said, yes, that's right, finally got around to doing one on episode 2. My name is Dom Douglas, and we're going to talk about the big thing that happened on February 11th, technically yesterday as of this recording. The Commander Bracket Beta system has come out. Last year, after Wizards of the Coast had to assume control of the Commander format. If you don't know, Commander is the 100-card format. The most popular format of Magic the Gathering was the rules committee was 5 people with about 10 others, if I'm not mistaken, kind of on the outside, the advisory committee. And some bans happened last year, and stuff went sideways. To the point that it was the most angry I'd ever been on the outcome of why Wizards had to take over the Commander format. Because people just didn't know how to behave themselves. Now, their first implementation of the bracket system, it's called the Bracket Beta, introduced by Gavin Verhey, who is probably the nicest human being that Wizards of the Coast employs. He is the face of basically the Pauper Committee format. He's also big into Commander as well, and the man has been at Wizards of the Coast, if I'm not mistaken, for almost 20 years, if not just that long. He heads up the Commander Committee. He is their boss of the other 16 to 20 people that are involved in the first iteration of this. They finally announced the Commander Brackets Beta, which is trying to simplify what power level is your commander. Is it a 1 or a 10? And the joke is, my commander is a 7. This is usually meant as a casual, what are we trying to do? Because in Commander, you do have that rule 0 conversation that you should be having on almost every Commander game you play. And that's basically, what's your intent? What are you trying to play? What are you trying to do? Case in point, I'll go with... I have to take a couple cards because this deck is getting upgraded. But when it comes to this, like my Zada Commander, I am running Goblin's Typal or Kindred. I will refer to it as Typal because by definition, Typal is more in line, I feel. It is either going to be an explosive turn 6 play does have that possibility, or it's going to do nothing for the whole game, and I'm just not going to do a single thing. It's trying to do 1 to 2 things, but those 1 to 2 things are very powerful, but there is no consistency within the power, which is kind of on brand for goblins, if you will. It is very much, I want to try to draw 50 cards with 1 red mana to win the game that way. If you lock me out and Zada doesn't touch the field, I'm just a aggressive Goblins deck with almost no card draw. Now, the other case in point that I would like to make, this is an OG Edgar Markov. My Edgar Markov deck is a different conversation. My Edgar Markov is powerful, but I have nerfed it to pieces. I have 2 pieces of tutors. I have Vampiric and I think a Dynamic. That's the only tutors that I have to look through my library. I am not playing any instant win 2-card combo kills. I'm not playing Exsanguating Blood. I'm playing a bunch of Blood Artist type of effects, but I'm not doing Exsanguating Blood, which basically whenever I lose life, opponents lose life, and it does this loop where it's an instant kill almost. Not playing that card. I'm not playing any of the really fast mana. I'm not playing Ancient Tomb. I'm not playing this. I'm not playing that. I'm playing... I don't even play Skull Clamp in this deck. Skull Clamp is not being played in this deck. I have to have that conversation. And even then, that conversation persisted because the few times I got to play it, my Markov deck, I was accidentally playing Arch Enemy. And if you don't know what that format is, it is a commander variant where it's a 3-on-1. But what happens is they see my commander being Edgar Markov, and the rest of the pod, rightfully so, makes it a 3-on-1 because I'm the threat no matter what, because my commander does things in the command zone. It never has to leave the command zone. But even with the numerous nerfs I've had to make to this deck, I've only been able to play it a handful of times, but it is still one of my favorite decks. So now they're trying to get around this with the Commander Brackets beta. This is a beta test. Experimenting, trying it out. They want feedback. You know, constructive criticism feedback, not anger, pitchforks, and all that other BS. This is also getting a feel for what this bracket system could do. And I will be honest, last year I was not happy with the bracket system when they announced it. I said it was an emergency blurred out. You did 25% of your homework and you just had to get something out there. So you just said, oh, here's this. Understandably so, considering what Wizards of the Coast was going through and the former rules committee at the time, they kind of needed to do something. Even if it was something that wasn't even in pre-alpha, just to get it out there. And I've just there. So there are 5 brackets, and I kind of called that they were going to, they said they were going to do 4 originally, but I called that they might wind up doing an extra one for CEDH. I was correct, but not really. There's 5 brackets, okay? There's bracket 1 is the lowest power, 5 is competitive EDH, CEDH. And they're labeled 1 is exhibition, ultra casual commander decks. And the way it's been explained is almost nobody that, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not playing a 1. This is goofy shenanigans. I think I might have, out of my 26 or 27 commander decks, a single exhibition level 1 commander deck. And that's probably my Gimli and Legolas counter of kills, because they're not partners, but I felt like they should have been partners, and I've never played it, so I can't be sure. Then step 2, level 2, is core, the average current pre-constructed deck. So if you go to a store and buy a precon like the ones that came out in Aether Drift, you're rocking a 2. I have 2 or 3 number 2s because I've bought a couple precons and I've kept them as is. So I can go to the store and at least have a precon if I got saddled up with a table. And it's happened a couple of times, especially in the last year, where I get put into a pod with a bunch of brand new players or people who just bought a precon. Okay, I'm not going to bring out Edgar Markov. I'm not going to bring out Zada. I'm going to bring out one of the precons that I brought, so I can at least make sure the pod has a fun, enjoyable game. Then there's level 3, upgraded, beyond the strength of an average precon. So this is if you've updated one of your precons. Like I've done. I've upgraded a couple of the precons. Like the Dogmeat is an upgraded precon. The Madison Lee is an upgraded precon. It's just off the top of my head because that's the last 2 precons that I've upgraded. Then there's level 4, CEDH. Starts here. Optimized. High-powered commander, it's time to go wild. This is your lower tier versions, if you will, of CEDH, which I always feel should be its own thing. And I did say that last year too, that CEDH in this bracket system should be considered its own thing. Because it is. It's a completely different mindset. It's a completely different play style. It's a completely different play pattern. There's almost no negotiating. There's almost no casual commander-like things where it's like, oh, I'll kill this creature, but don't hit me for 2 turns type thing. You can't do that in CEDH because it's competitive. The name of the game in CEDH is not you're having fun, but you're also being competitive, and you're also doing probably a Friday Night Magic of competitive level where prizes are involved. So you can't really do that. So CEDH is its own thing, and I used to not like CEDH at all. I will never play it, but now I've warmed up to it that a lot of things have been explained to me on what CEDH is. So that's the brackets, and there's a little bit underlining rules within these brackets. In Exhibition, no mass land denial or extra turns. So you're not doing any extra turns, and you're not doing any mass land denial. You're not playing Armageddons or anything. You're playing very situational, one-shot spell for 1 land to kill a land or a land to kill a land. You're playing that type of stuff. No 2-card infinite combos, no game changers, we'll get to that in a bit, and few tutors. Core 2 is the average, same expectations, no chaining extra turns now. You can take an extra turn in Core, because some of the precons do let you take an extra turn, but you're not chaining 3 to 4 to 5 extra turns in a row. And then still, once again, few tutors. Tutors let you look for any card in your library, put it into your hand, or put it on the top of the library, but the best tutors put it into your hand. On the level 3 upgraded, once again, no mass land denial, and this is also stuff like Winter Orb, which prevents people from only untapping 1 land a turn. So if you have any way to prevent even untap steps from happening, you can't play them in the first 3 levels. Once again, no chaining extra turns in level 3, but now you can have late game 2-card combos. So this isn't like stuff like anything Thassa's Oracle related, where you're playing Thassa's Oracle, which is basically, if it's in your 99, that's your win condition. And you're playing a 2-drop spell that lets you mill out your entire library. Then you play Thassa's Oracle afterwards, where Thassa's Oracle says if you can't draw a card from your library, you win the game. You're not playing that. Instead, you're playing 6 and 7-drop spells that combo off, or a 4-drop and a 6-drop that combo off together. And then you can now have 3 game changers in the upgraded level 3. Level 4, no restrictions other than the ban list. And then level 5, no restrictions other than the ban list. 4 and 5 are CEDH. 5 is definitely CEDH. 4 is that, like, you're starting to get a little bit more power in your decks. So there is that. Now, the biggest thing is game changers. And game changers are 40 cards. They chose 40 cards for game changers. That is just the start. Gavin even said in the article, the number being round is just a coincidence. The list doesn't always have to be 40 cards. It'll increase in a moment. The game changer spells and we'll break this down in colors. White is Drannith Magistrate, Enlightened Tutor, Sarah's Sanctum, Smothering Tithe, Trouble in Pairs. Blue, Cyclonic Rift, Expropriate, Force of Will, Fierce Guardianship, Rhystic Study, Thassa's Oracle, Urza Lord High Artificer, Mystical Tutor, Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur. In black, it's Bola Citadel, Dynamic Tutor, Imperial Seal, Opposition Agent, Tergrid God of Fright, Vampiric Tutor, Ad Nauseam. Red is Jessica's Will, Underworld Breach. Green, Survival of the Fittest, Vorinclex Voice of Hunger, Gaia's Cradle. Multicolor. Kinnan Bonder Prodigy, Eurykio, the Tiger Shadow, Winota, Joiner of Forces, Grand Arbiter Augustin IV. In colorless, it is Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, the One Ring, the Tabernacle at Pendervale, Trinisphere, Grim Monolith, Lion's Eye Diamond, Mox Diamond, Mana Vault, Glacial Chasm. So the Game Changers, that's where level 3 can have up to 3 of them. So a lot of your decks are playing those particular 3. You might be playing more if you're Urza, Tegrid, Kinnan, Eurykio, Winota, Grand Arbiter, Augustin, because those are generally your commanders. Or they're your backup commander. Some well-built commander decks will have a backup commander. All precons have a backup commander in case you don't like what the commander does and your play style is more akin to what the backup commander is. I actually did do that. I've done that once or twice where I've played the backup commander more than the commander because I think it did what it wanted to do a little bit better. And then Gavin ends up with the upcoming roadmap. They wanted to leave a better understanding of what we're doing next. That way you can anticipate updates. So we're going to give you a transparent look behind the curtain. First step, you tried for us and we hear your thoughts. I'm sure we'll start hearing feedback quickly. And please, if you have constructive feedback, give it to them. Even if it's critical, be constructive about it. Be constructive with your criticism. Do not be destructive with your criticism. And it's also dropping there. It's gonna be available at MagicCon Chicago. So a lot of people will get a lot of playtesting in with this bracket system. Now, provided the system generally works and is headed in the right direction, we'll begin making revisions soon after MagicCon for any structural changes we want to include. And then the goal here is to provided the system works, we'll be able to come back with one big article in late April that both rolls out the full system and any unbans altogether. That is a very important statement because last year I predicted they were going to drop a big announcement early in the year, a couple weeks off, but that big announcement was the roadmap, the bracket system. And then sometime after that, in the very first portion of the year, like I think I said a month or two after that, expect some unbans to happen. And I think unbanning is going to happen. I'm not going to say with 100% certainty what cards are going to be unbanned. I know one of them, of the 4 from last year that got banned, I think might get unbanned. Mana Crypt. I think Mana Crypt gets unbanned. From the 3 that were. And they broke it down also in the Q&A. Why is X card on the game change list? And Gavin broke it down. Let me break down the reasons and categories for all the cards here as of this iteration. The Enlightened Tutor, Mystic, Dynamic, Vampiric, Imperial Seal, Survival of the Fittest. These are the best in class tutors and tend to find combo pieces or homogenize the game to play out similarly. These cards let you basically get your construction set pieces, your combo pieces together rather easily. So basically, if you combo off, you win the game. So you can find those very easily. And Imperial, Vampiric, and Dynamic, those are in black. Enlightened and Mystic are in blue, white and blue respectively. Survival of the Fittest is in green. Drannith Magistrate, Opposition Agent, Trinisphere, Glacial Chasm, Tabernacle at Pendervale Vale. These effectively lock out your opponent's ability to use their cards in frustrating ways. Like Opposition Agent. We'll go over that real quick. It's a 2 and a black for a human rogue with flash. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though they were mana of any color to cast it. So if I try to tutor or even search my library and crack a fetch land, you could play Opposition Agent and take over my turn, find the land that you want, and then play it. effectively land destructing me because I used the land to find a land, and now I can't find the land. Tithe, Trouble in Pairs, Ristic Study, The One Ring, Jessica's Will, Bola Citadel. They provide overwhelming resource advantage for their mana value and tend to cause a player to snowball the game. But Force of Will is the weird one. Fierce Guardianship and Force of Will are free spells. Fierce Guardianship, you can cast it if your commander's on the field. Force of Will, you gotta remove a blue card from hand and pay a life. There's a little bit more cost to Force of Will, especially in Commander, because you want to have cards in hand. And if you want to counter something with Force of Will for free, the life loss, barely a blip on your life total. The blue card, however, having to discard that is a little bit more important. And whereas Fierce Guardianship, as long as you control Commander, you can just play that spell. So you don't have a card loss in your hand. And then, obviously, Kinnan, Yurikyo, Winota, Grand Arbiter, Tegrid, and Urza, they wanted to be very careful with the legendary creatures that they hit on this list, as it essentially knocks them out of brackets 1 and 2. But if you're playing those legendary creatures in your 99, you're not playing mega casual Commander. The side joke with me is Urza decks I'm not allowed to cut because I will cut into the turn 2 win. And I've done it 3 times in my life. Additionally, your commander is the one thing you know before playing the game. So it gives you an easy way to say, hey, I don't want to play against that commander. But however, after a lot of discussion, they felt these 6 were almost never used fairly when played as commanders. Good point. There might be one person out there who has it, and that person, feel free to try and convince the table, as mentioned earlier. Rule 0 still applies. But generally, these commanders that have certain pedigree of appearances or that most players don't want to play against, that say bracket 2, that this does apply to the rest of your deck as well. With these cards can be a lot better within your 99. We didn't want an additional list distinguishing cards that are only game changers when used as commanders. Makes sense. Because right now, you have the brackets and you have the game changers. That's do you want to add commander ban list? And the big thing, why isn't Soul Ring on the Game Changers list? One of the things that they were saying is fast mana is bad. It does qualify as fast mana. But the truth is, it's Soul Ring. It's the most iconic card in all of Commander. It's something that since near the beginning has been the poster child for the format. Playing one Soul Ring is a universal truth, handed down from Sheldon Menery. He was the head of the Commander Advisory Board and generally considered the father of Commander. Sheldon, he did pass away in 2023, was a retired level 5 judge and a leading member of the Commander Rules Committee, and often said the godfather of Commander. And it was sad when he passed, and ever since then, Commander's been in an odd spot, not going to lie. But one of the tenets is Sheldon was always hard fixed on Soul Ring is Commander. Just like Command Tower is Commander. Why are there 5 brackets? Doesn't it just kind of boil down to 3? Yeah, kind of. But there is an audience that does play super juiced, powerful decks, and those who play decks that are vastly underpowered. And this is why I think that it was great putting CEDH players on the new board. In talking with the CEDH experts like Deco, Lewis Stardust, and Rebel, they felt that there's a difference between high-powered and CEDH-worthy quantifying. Additionally, a great point that was brought up was that CEDH already has done exactly what they're doing here, with a label that indicates the kind of games you're looking for. They have earned that official labeling by virtue of having it proved that it worked. They do expect a lot of Commander decks to fall into core, upgraded, and optimized brackets. Brackets 2, 3, and 4. And that's okay. But you're not going to have many 1s, and the 5s shouldn't be messing with the 3s, 2s, and 1s. Because if you're playing a CEDH deck and you go to pub stomp, which is label term for just winning a game knowing that you were going to win because you picked on basically the underpowered decks. Like, don't. Or at least let the table know that, is it okay if I play this? And sometimes you can play a CEDH deck with a pod of ones and twos. Alter your play style. I've done that many times. I've done that with Zada a lot, where I go, all right, it's turn 5. I'll show you what I have in my hand. I can do this into this into this. I'm going to get 50 goblins on the board. They're all going to get +10, +10. I'm going to swing out and win the game. Could anybody stop that? Okay. Nobody could stop that? Okay. What I'm going to do instead is play this 2-drop past the turn. And I'm not going to do that until another 5 or 6 turns because, yeah, it would have popped off. But I let the table at least know because, remember, Casual Commander, the stakes have never been lower. Remember that. The stakes have never been lower in Casual Commander. So that's my way of kind of nerfing my play a little bit, especially if Zada has popped off on like turn 5. And this is after I've warned everybody. It's like, hey, look, I was about to pop off on turn 5, but instead I'm going to do this because nobody can stop the carnage and 1-turn kill that I'm about to do. Because we just started playing. I want to play at least 20 more minutes. I'm pretty sure everybody else wants to play 20 more minutes. And if they say, nah, you win, all right, cool. Zada goes back in the book bag. Let me grab an underpowered deck that I brought. And then the question, my best deck has no game changers and is technically a bracket 2. Should I play it there? You should play where you think you belong, as I just, said. Why 3 cards from the game changers list for bracket 3? We talked a lot about the decks we had and what we expected. What we felt about right so that your deck could have some of these cards show up but not be full of them. We talked about 3, 4, and 5 cards, and while 5 doesn't sound like a lot, when the list is only around 40 cards, that's a lot. Plus 3 of them, if you're playing black, is your tutors. So you can play your 3 tutors and then play 2 more combo pieces in your game changers. So that's why I like the 3 number. We naturally expect people to talk about how many game changers are in their deck. So if someone says, hey, I have X game changers in my deck, is that okay? You can decide if that's cool or not. Now, the other interesting question at the end, is there a way for online tools to use to tell me what deck my bracket is? And here's why Wizards is really on point with this, and I'm very surprised. I was not expecting this at all from Wizards of the Coast. But when you have Gavin leading the charge, expect good things. I'm going to start expecting that, especially with this rollout of the bracket system. This is something they wanted to roll out and get adopted into as many community tools people use. It's important that a community format involves great community resources after all. We've gone ahead and given the popular deck building websites Archideck and Moxfield, as well as the popular Magic search engine Scryfall, a heads up on the entire system. And you should begin seeing them implement it very quickly, even as soon as this article goes live. And as soon as the article went live and I got to that part and I checked the Archideck and I checked my Garth One-Eye deck, it was a 2 on the bracket. So I got to give Wizards of the Coast and Gavin Verhey a lot of credit. They've rolled this out. Editing Dom here. Also within the hour, Game Nights had dropped a complete podcast explaining the bracket system and their thoughts. Wizards did a damn good job at rolling this initial beta out. Now the testing begins. And will the testing... I hope the testing works. I'm actually surprised that the 5 bracket system was what they went with, because they originally said it was going to be 4. And then I was like, well, it wouldn't surprise me if CEDH has their own bracket. And technically they do. But they just kind of shifted 1 to 4 to 2 to 5 and made a super underpowered 1. level 1. So that is the Commander bracket system that was introduced February 11th. The article is up if you want to read the full thing and the Q&A on Wizards website, magic.wizards.com/news, daily MTG. They also did a live stream of it, and that's how I knew, they just announced the Commander bracket system. Let me watch it. And I watched the last 10 minutes of it, and I was like, oops, I missed everything. But then immediately, like 5 minutes after that live stream, Gavin's article went up. So far, my one prediction that I had for Commander has kind of come true. In April, we'll find out if the unbannings that I think might happen would happen. Because Mana Crypt is a 0 artifact. During your upkeep, flip a coin. Opponent calls heads or tails while coin is in the air. If flip ends in opponent's favor, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you. Add 2 colorless mana. Tap it to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. Play this as only an interrupt. I think that card gets unbanned. Along with a couple other cards. I think Coalition Victory gets unbanned. But I think that's going to be the biggest one. People are saying Jeweled Lotus and Dockside should be unbanned. It's not going to happen because Gavin, who's now the head of Commander, has said Dockside isn't getting unbanned. Dockside leads to very degenerate play patterns of especially focusing on recursion, and Jeweled Lotus was a mistake. To the point that after all that happened, even Josh Lee Kwai, he was part of Game Nights. He was part of the advisory board. Even told Wizards of the Coast to their face in face-to-face conversation, do not print that card. That card is bad. That card will ruin the format. And now Gavin has come out and said Jeweled Lotus was a mistake. So it's not going to get unbanned. But Crypt, I think Mana Crypt gets unbanned. But don't quote me on that, and don't speculate, and don't try to go out and buy Mana Crypts thinking that the price is going to surge. Do not take financial advice from me. If you didn't listen in the intro, just because I've been playing for 30 years doesn't mean I'm really good at this game, because I'm not. On that note, that was the Commander's Bracket Beta. Folks, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, even if it's in the background. And you could do me a solid, and I wait till the end of the episode to say this, just in case your interest is piqued. If you want, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, so you can catch all the great, not only just my ugly mug talking Commander, but eventually getting into some arena games for Standard, and also, all the other videos that Max Heroes and Villains YouTube channel is going to be presenting. My name is Dom Douglas, and may your top deck always be mythic. And I'm going to try to find the stop record button. Got it.